There we go. And we are live. We are up and running. How you doing, Pete?
Yeah, not too bad. It's a bit late, but not too bad. Thanks. How you doing?
Not too bad. I mean, I don't fancy a late one tonight. I fancy 2 o'clock at the latest for me. So literally 50 minutes or something like that. I don't really want a late stream
Yeah.
tonight. I've had a few late ones recently, and I spent most of the day trying to edit that video to cut out the ums and the ahs and there was a lot of editing that had to go in that to make it sound somewhat audible because it's just the way it was. It's the first time he's spoken on camera, so what can I say?
And is this all a joke or something? I mean, he reiterated time and time again that he was from Blackpool, and I found it very interesting that like we have the black swan in the ether these days, right? But I haven't been following any of the news recently. So anything on the news for me is just a hoax now. Whatever sort of greater script is being played out, there's going to be a narrative to it. So maybe this plays its part. The first thing that struck me just on hearing it is the name itself. Everything's about the name chosen. So the corona reminds us of immediately the sun, right? And here we are in flat Earth, wondering what the sun actually is, and maybe it's something to play into that. But in terms of taking that man seriously, well, how can you do that? I can't. Well, I can't anyway. I can't speak for anyone else. But some of
Well,
the things he talks about, maybe has merit on their own. But in terms of a greater narrative being presented to the public and a sort of a deeper narrative, that strikes me as just like sort of conspiracy layers within layers. So that's my initial impression.
yeah, I mean, everyone's entitled to however they perceive to, how the presentation went. For my part, I met this guy last year. It was a random occurrence, actually. I was painting. I'd been contacted to paint some offices up in St Anne's, and over the telephone, I gave a verbal price, like a day rate for a couple of days, which was acceptable. So I turned up to do the job. And I don't know. I mean, I just felt like this guy. He was there. He was setting his offices up. He was just getting started, sort of thing. And I'm doing my work there. And I thought, I wonder if I'll slip in a bit of truth here. Find out where he's at. A bit of flat Earth. See how see if he's susceptible to sort of like learning about that. Turns out he's already so far down the line with stuff that he knows, and it took a long time for him to open up and then actually start saying, well, actually, this is what these offices are for. These offices are for exposing the Illuminati and stuff like that, and he went into a lot of detail about it. I did actually talk about it on my channel about a year ago. Got a bit of grief about it, actually. Like, people say, oh, are you part of the Illuminati? No, I just happened to actually bump into a guy and get talking about flat Earth that led on to this back and forth about what he knows is going on in the world. So, yeah,
Well,
so out of the blue, he contacted me yesterday, not yesterday, day before yesterday, out of the blue, literally out of the blue. I hadn't spoken to him since that time. And he said to me, we need to meet up. I need to tell you about something that's really important. I need to get this information out there. And so we met up. He told me what he knew. And I thought, right, okay, then, well, I have a choice. I can put it on my channel and see what people do. If it bears fruition and it's true, and one person goes out and helps themselves, then I've saved one person. And if nothing happens at the end of the day, I just get grief for another year off the knobheads in chat that are going to call me an Illuminati shill and a prick or whatever. It's no skin off my back at the end of the day. I've been there and I've been through it all before, so I just don't care. It is what it is, and if it helps, if people go out and buy stuff and they do end up preparing, and it turns out that it's true, then hey, I've done my job.
I tell the truth. Those goggles are goggles for painting. They're to avoid splatter when you're painting the ceiling. Tell the truth.
Well, these are what he brought around. He brought two pairs actually for me and the missus. So what, I don't even know what. Hang on, let me get the branding. Equip Trade safety goggles, and what's the other one? Easy mask. So I don't know if these are going to actually be effective or anything like that, if it's true. But hey, I can walk around and pretend I'm safe.
Well, I mean, if it's going to be as bad as you say, the people without masks, when they see people with masks, they'll be skin and blood flying because, I mean, what's the upshot here? Is it all doom and gloom? And first of all, where I didn't sense any Illuminati. You mentioned the left and the right path. And the temple, but outside of that, I didn't sense any sort of hyper informed sort of delivery. You know what I mean? So, I mean, he also sort of seemed to be
Yeah,
selling something
well,
at the end, pointing everybody to a certain website or a certain new forum, right, where it's not as censored as YouTube, and also information. So, an information gathering center. All possible. Why is he not coming out, Ranty? Why is he so open about him being in Blackpool, but yet retaining sort of anonymity and going through you? It's all a bit it's all a bit farcical, if you don't mind me saying.
yeah. Listen, at the end of the day, I mean, I have a platform here, and I have a platform, and people are already awake. Whether or not they're too awake, and I'm not quite as awake as everybody else, and maybe I've still got to get to that point where. Like I spoke to Russian Vids about this, and I wanted to see if he wanted to simulcast it or put it on his channel. So I actually spoke to him. I think it was yesterday or the day before. Can't remember now. I think one of the last 2 days anyway. And he said it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. He says it was blah 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 blah. You're being sold down the river. Bob from Globebusters felt the same, but ultimately, I mean, I feel like I just had a duty to just put that out there and just see what happens.
Right, right. And look, I'm not following the mainstream news, so a big deal has been made about this. As I say, I don't. I think that's all theatre. I think that guy's a pure actor, whoever he is. If I'm not going to say that you're genuine, but if it's all theatre, then a narrative, the script is sort of going to be played out. So maybe this is written into it. Now, whatever the consequences are, I've often said, like, look, flat Earth is just the beginning. So now we find ourselves in a real reality with a real history, ultimately able to come back to us and our story. So when I hear these sort of things now, again, I'm looking straight away at the names chosen and how it applies to, let's say, this unveiling here, whatever's going on with flat Earth. As again, it applies immediately to the sun. And just out of interest, like you talk about chemtrails. I've often talked about HARP and how everything is sort of. I see it being used in sort of conjunction. We live in a sort of electrified environment. So I've been saying that the Schumann resonance of Earth has increased drastically because I hold that Aristarchus, the tree of life, the generating center, has increased in frequency. So that corona reference, which is a reference to the sun, which I say is everything is a singular source, right? All of these things might be sort of piling up towards the greater overwhelming story, whatever it is. One thing I say anyway is all of the illusion has to be shattered one way or another. A lot of these fake events are made obviously and clearly fake for a reason, and I think it's because the people are being sort of said and led into conspiracy, into questioning. Ultimately, our question will come back to, well, what is reality? Who are we having this experience? And I think ultimately, there's no sort of separating anything. Everything will sort of combine into,
Well,
one grand. It all has to come to an end, right? One
well,
grand
the
apocalypse.
way
Granted.
the way I'm thinking about this is it. Look, okay, let's suppose you needed something to destabilize things. Yeah, it would only take you removing 10% of the population for pretty much everything to start failing.
Yeah,
Because if you can't leave the house, if you can't get your goods, you can't get you can't get your petrol delivery. You're not allowed to leave the house. You're under lockdown. 10% of people dying isn't the biggest thing. It's the after effects that come afterwards. It's the financial instability. It's
yeah.
the people dying of all the other secondary illnesses that they're getting from not having treatment. It's the lack of food, people starving to death, and it's that if you wanted a reset in some way, and with the way that flat Earth is going. It's quite clear now that all these governments worldwide have been in on this. It's
Yeah.
the powers that be have this narrative. Well, what's the best way to reset the narrative? Well, it's like what they did coming up to World War II. It's like what they did coming up to World War One. There's always these big events that come up. that kind of change, sort of like a design to actually change things. And if this is something like that, it could be, like they say, was it an order out of chaos? Was that the
Yeah.
term they use? Order out of chaos. So, okay, 10%, if it's true, could die. You could get 30% of people dying through other things that happen in an aftermath of that. Then you've got all the chaos, the looting, the violence that are going to go around, the no governments, the lack of government, etc., the lack of food. I mean, it would be a catastrophe, worldwide catastrophe, because we're not designed. We're used to getting our food delivered, and going to the supermarket and get food. We don't grow our own food. If this happened 150 years ago, people could probably get by because they could buy. They've got farming out there. Agriculture. We don't have that nowadays. Do you know how to farm, Pete?
It's an interesting question. I mean, that's even over a long term. If you're stuck for food, how long do you think you'd last as an individual? First of all, yeah, a lot of these scare tactics, the end of the world is nigh, has been going back, and I was certainly immersed in it back in 2012 and beyond that even, where the world was capable of ending at any moment. And when you think about it, it would be very easy to drastically shift just reality. And how long could a person, individual, how long do you imagine yourself surviving without food? And especially under stressful situations, the whole of society is capable of being broken down in a matter of a week, even because, first of all, you'd attack the communication systems, right? This is what they always do with any of these big psyops. They cut communications, and they don't allow sort of communication. Well, now we're living in a different age. If you think that the movies provide clues, take another look at Die Hard 4. Die Hard 1 and 2 and 3 were associated with 9/11, if you don't know that type of conspiracy. But like, they tell us the truth in the movies. But I would say the ultimate question here, I've considered all of this, right? Because anything is possible now on the flat earth. But I've considered this, and where I'm at is that, look, everything is scripted anyway. Everything is pre-scripted out. So we've just sort of entered the story, and it's sort of playing out before us. Now, how you react or act towards all of these sensationalist stories, I guess, in one sense, that's down to yourself. I guess it's a process. If you hear, it's like the boy that cried wolf, right? If you hear the wolf being cried 100 times, when you hear it being cried 101 times, you're not going to take it so seriously. But the guy or the woman who's only hearing it for the first or second time, the chorus, and then thrown into the midst of all of the rest of this confusion that flat Earth brings along, and now it's on mainstream again. Mark Sargent had the dodo on screen on television yesterday, ranting.
Hey, listen,
the two-sided plate. Did you see it?
I didn't actually see what you're talking about there, but I did notice that the interviewers went. Well, in my opinion, it was the best interview that came across. Okay, they made a few digs, but the way it ended with them saying, "Oh yeah, let's invest in hospitals and other stuff rather than spending all this money and sending it to NASA." It was like, hey, they're actually talking the truth right now.
Right.
And,
but in a mocking way, I guess. I didn't see the interview myself. I'm gone well beyond that. But I just noticed what I'm talking about the dodo is the shape of the map, right? The Gleason's map. And Mark had the little cardboard thing, or Philip had it in his hand. And funny that he came out as well. I don't pay any attention to any of this stuff, really. Well, I just saw it on a video. Philip Schofield comes out being gay. And it's funny he comes out, all his attention to him. And now you have Mark Sargent on, with the dodo being the face of the land, right? And he had it on his little silver plate, and it had it on both sides. What is
the biggest thing right now in our society from the last 40, 50 years? You've got to say it's the globe, isn't it? The globe is everywhere. It's on absolutely everything. Every TV program, every book, every time you open a newspaper, it's the globe this, it's the news report globe that. It's absolutely everywhere. And I think Flat Earth is winning so badly that it can't, obviously this is information will get out. Give it 10 years maybe, and probably it will be the other way around, where most people, get back to actually understanding that the world is flat and it isn't actually a globe. Well, how do the governments go from having all this propaganda and the populist movement, which is us guys, basically undermining them the whole way, and then this movement growing? I mean, what's the out for them? It has to be a reset, doesn't it? It has to be a reset.
Yeah, it has to be the end of the old, right? It has to be a reset, and none of this is organic. The same sort of script writers are in play all the time, and I guess it just down to the individual here. It depends on what you make of stuff. For me, myself, I see a greater story unraveling, and I don't see 10 years. It's no, everything. I reckon why they all could cooperate. People ask, how can you have so many people involved in the lie? Well, how can they cooperate? That the truth would get out. We've often heard that, right? Well, if they're all let in the lie, if they're let in on the ultimate truth, because of course, if the earth isn't a ball, then there's a different truth to our reality. So, for instance, well, listen, does not bring it home with David Weiss and the interview with the 100. Let's take it for genuine, the 102-year-old woman. Back in 1918, they were told as a general thing, like the general truth, that the Earth was flat. That's amazing. So how far can we go back? Now, I've been considering Shakespeare, right? With most of his works coming around 1600 or 1611 is when he wrote his last work. But he was the biggest promoter of the globe, we're told, or you can see that through his works. I think I quoted a Hamlet phrase. What is it? I could be bounded in a nutshell and consider myself king of infinite space were it not for the bad dreams. Now, Shakespeare had the Globe Theatre himself. So it was like it was an accepted thing, incorporated into his works. Now, if that's not even the case in terms of this revised history, and this woman, as they say, the flat earth was taught in schools up to 100 years ago, so it was the common knowledge. Well, then everything comes under more scrutiny still. Is it all a script here? Is it all some sort of a construct, a greater game of life? And I think it actually is. So everything is pre-written. I'm going to put it like that. So I guess it's down to the individual, the honest individual, I'm going to say, to make sense of it all. I think we have the capabilities of it. And there's going to be lots of scare tactics. But I think if you look at something like the corona thing, you surely find lots of humor thrown into that, because lots of these hoaxes are becoming more and more obvious. And what they do as well,
Yeah, but
what they
Pete,
do, let me just say this, Randy.
go
Yeah,
on.
I was just going to say, what they do as well is once you see through sort of the new hoaxes, right? And you see them for what they are. Not commenting on this so much, but then you can go back to the older hoaxes. And someone mentioned, Casper mentioned the foot and mouth. Remember the foot and mouth epidemic here
Yeah,
in
I
Ireland?
do.
And
I do.
yeah, that was more nonsense.
But do you know
All
what, Pete? Do you
nonsense.
know what, Pete? Do you know what, Pete? And this is the only thing that I'm going to say. What I feel is different about this is that the mainstream are downplaying everything. This is the thing. Mainstream are telling you not to panic, telling you it's not a worry. In all the other cases that you've just mentioned, it's always been. I mean, do you remember when the measles? They were talking about the measles in America this
Yeah,
year, right? And everybody needed to be vaccinated. Not one person died of measles, right? And yet it was all over the news for weeks, right? But it's literally like every other pandemic or supposed pandemic. They've always said, "Don't worry about it. Sorry, you need to worry about this. The end is coming. It's
right,
death to everybody." But this one, it's nothing to worry about. Everything's fine, right? This is the difference. And yet there are citizen journalists in China. I've seen the videos, Pete, of them bulldozing that many people into mass graves to set them on fire. There's that much evidence out there that what they have told us is so under what is actually happening,
right.
right?
Well,
So under, right? You
and
don't you don't you don't lock down 400 million people and quarantine them to the houses. You don't do that for no good reason, right? Think about it, Pete.
right, right. Well, listen, I haven't been paying attention to the news. Everything seems fine here in Ireland. But if I was to see something sort of playing out, I could imagine something like that would be pushed. We see all of not the vampire, the zombie movies. We see all of sort of the images from Asia and East or West. The eastern part of the world, with the people going around in masks for years as sort of hygiene thing. So all of these things could be said to be put in place. I don't know the videos you're talking about. Have you checked them all out for possible fakery, or maybe if it was a reality, it could be an associated pandemic somewhere else from a
Yeah,
different time.
and well, also I saw a video 2.5 weeks ago now of a Chinese doctor. She was a female doctor, getting the information out saying that already 90,000 people were infected. Right. This is what she was saying on the
Mm,
video. Right. This was 2.5 weeks ago. She was actually in. The video was legit,
yeah,
verified. 90,000 people apparently then, right? When at the time they were saying, I think 2.5 weeks ago, oh, it's only, I think it was about 800 people or 900 people were infected with around about, I don't know, 30 deaths or something, very low. But it was under 1,000, I think, people that were
Yeah.
infected. And she was saying there was 90,000 back then, right? So now when we hear reports that there's 45,000 people infected, right? And yet you're hearing other reports that there's 12 million infected, right? And 400 million people are shut down. In fact, Shanghai shut down. You can't, Shanghai, Shanghai. I need to get them all up now, but there's 50 cities in China that are all in quarantine. You cannot leave your house, right?
Is that confirmed? Is it?
Yes, it is confirmed. Yeah, this is Pete.
Well,
What I'm saying is this isn't from my. This is why I decided to put it out on my channel. I've done my own research. I've looked into this myself, and I just feel that there is enough information out there that it needed to be shown. And if you've got almost 500 million people that are quarantined in the biggest, what you'd say, financial country in the world, which is China right now, nobody's going to work. Nobody's leaving the house. Only one person per household can leave every 2 days to go and get some groceries, right? Some groceries. But Hong Kong is sold out of food. China is selling out of food. There's literally nothing left. Nobody's working. There's no food coming in. There's no transport coming in. Nothing. And we're not being told about this, Pete.
Well, that's news to me now. And if that is, let's just say that is the case. First of all, I would say stuff like the London Blitz, right? It's the easiest thing in the world to put the scares on people, and not to say that the situation isn't happening, but what's actually the cause of the situation? That could be a completely different thing. I don't believe many people died in the London Blitzes, and I don't believe in the V2 bombs from Germany over, so it was just a sort of an excuse to bomb the city, or sort of to take down the city and to redesign it. And now we have all of the inverted commas sort of satanic layouts of the city. But in regards, if that is the reality in China and beyond, well, I don't think that automatically says that the disease and everything they say about it has to be correct then. But I do think that something is, I've been waiting for years for the transition, the end of it, the script to finally play out. So this could all be playing a part in. I don't think people need to die. And this fantastical virus then that is so deadly and so pernicious, right? It doesn't sound right to me. Let me just say this. I can see how it might follow on, Ranty, and I'll tell you this as well.
Apparently,
I can see how they might. Let me just say, I can see how they might extend it and say it's sunlight now is dangerous. So they've been preparing us for years, and all of these things sort of coming together to achieve their goals, which is maybe, let me just say, maybe what? Keep everyone indoors and let them get on with what they have to do then, whatever that might be, whoever they are, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I know that, I'll talk about stuff. I will talk about 9/11. I'll talk about 7/7. You name it, there's nothing really off bounds that I won't talk about. I've looked into a lot of stuff. And quite often the mainstream narrative for that has always been completely the opposite of what it actually was, right? So, and it's the same every single time. Whenever they tell you there's a virus out there that's going to kill everybody goes and prepares and nobody gets ill, right? The measles is going to kill everybody and nobody gets the measles, nobody dies of the measles. And yet everything's always the opposite. Everything's always the opposite. They're telling us not to worry. And yet we have, would you lock down half the Chinese population in at least 50 cities? Would you do that? If it was just a flu that was killing 2%, and the normal flu, by the way, kills, I think, is it about 6% of people, 3 to 6% of people, just the normal flu. So this is a flu, apparently, right, that only kills 2% of people, right? So it's far less likely to kill you, but yet they've closed down all industry, put everybody in lockdown. Does that make sense to you, Pete?
Well, as I said, I don't know anything about this at all. But are you telling me there's no mainstream coverage of all of the shutdowns in terms of the financial institutions that pretty much run the world from some of these centres? Pretty
much, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's China you're dealing with there. I mean, they don't let anything. They have control of everything. everything, even the internet. There's nothing that gets out of China if they don't want it to get out.
Mm.
Um, somebody just put in chat that flights are being already turned away from Singapore right now. Now, I knew about
Yeah.
this. I knew that Singapore was going down. Singapore was in the firing line. Hong Kong was being has sold out of food already. Because they know it's coming there, and they know they're going to get put on lockdown too. So all I'm saying is this is in the alt news. This isn't in the
Right.
mainstream, but it's out there, and we've got, like I say, the confirmed deaths. Well, they reckon that the kill rate on this virus is about 17%. Go
Well,
figure.
that's epidemic, pandemic
Yes, it
proportions,
is,
right?
but it's also a biological weapon. It was made. It was made. It's not from nature because it's been confirmed in many different um, facilities that they've had. And the funny thing is, they put the information out from these facilities, right? And then the PDF's there, and then the next day it's been redacted. They've made them
Mm.
redact it. Four separate occasions where different places have actually done tests on the virus, and they've actually put their findings out, which have said that, look, it's a man-made biological weapon, and then the next day they've had to redact it. But people have still
Yeah,
got the PDF from them.
I think if you'd made a few interesting comments about, or someone else might have made them, but he posted it. If you'd in the chat, he might repost that and just the associations between, I think, the video game Resident Evil and that whole, I don't know it myself, but that whole narrative. Um, yeah, I mean, what's a man to do? So imagine for instance, the story spread over here. What would we do? What have you like taken any direct action? Have you stocked up in food, tin food?
Yeah, I have.
Um,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I
yeah.
went. I went out after he contacted me a couple of days ago. I went out yesterday, and yeah, I stocked up. I spent about, I think it was about 130 quid on rice and beans and all kinds of tinned food, and oh yeah, I bought some coal as well, just in just in case we got no
Nice one. I
heating.
believe you got a super chat yesterday, substantial. So that's paid for that. Nice one.
Yeah, well, I won't get that for 6 weeks, but if we're still around in 6 weeks,
Well,
it
at least you
might
have the
come
food now, right?
in.
And in 6 weeks' time, well, who knows what the story will. Let me
Well,
predict now something about
look, it's
April,
not
April
look,
2020.
well, it's not
April has always been a big month, and the Earth was supposed to have been created in April, according to some accounts. So April is a very big month, and well, as I see all of this, yeah, I'm not in for the scare tactics anymore. If I fucking die, well, that's all the quicker then I get back to me being me, because I'm in a divided state
Oh,
here,
don't get me wrong, Pete.
and
I'm
you
not
know,
bothered. I'm not. Dying to me doesn't beat. I don't fear dying at all. I just think this is a meat suit. We go where we
yeah,
go, and that's it. There's no point fretting about that. I don't do that. But still doesn't mean that I isn't going to prepare because I'm not looking to die. But if it comes
yeah,
my way, I'm not scared of it. But what I
yeah,
will do is, it's not essentially panic buying. I mean, the food that I've bought, I'll eat it over the next year anyway. It's just I've bought a bunch of rice in because I'm always eating rice. I'm always making food with rice in and stuff. So eventually I'll get through it all. So it's not like I'm just buying it now. It's just that
yeah,
I've got it in case something
yeah.
happens.
You stocked up in weed and vodka, and the
I
hookers are in the
wish.
basement. They're comfortable.
Well, there's a choice, isn't there? You could spend £130 on groceries or stuff, or you could have a night with a really hot hooker. You know,
Yeah, well,
or maybe an hour. I don't know how much they charge, but
yeah.
you know.
No comment there. Neither do I, by the way. I've never availed of those services. Yeah, I walked, the narrow pathway in Amsterdam, and that was a walk of shame in the sense, like I'm always sort of someone to salute people, And as I was walking down the alleyway in Amsterdam, if anyone knows it, in the red light district, there's sort of these windows, very narrow alleyway, and every window features this sexy hot woman. You assume they're a woman anyway to begin with, but everyone is like being overly friendly to you personally, and I'm sort of, yeah, how you doing? And everyone's sort of inviting you in, and you're going, no, I'm just walking along. By the time you get to five windows gone, you're sick of fucking saying all these things to the women in sign language, and they just put your head down and walk to the end of the street. So I'm not into that sort of thing myself. But look, yeah, the way I look at it, right? Let's take a more possible optimistic look at this, right? If the whole of this Earth is in shit, all of the systems are exposed to be corrupt, and there was always some sort of a reset penciled in, how might it be gone about? You know, how would it be brought in? And I would say it's probably exactly something like this. People have been prepared for years and years
Mm.
with all the zombie movies and everything else. You know, I think everything else will add, if we read it correctly, to the greater story here, the greater outcome to all of this. So, as I said, you're probably better off talking to someone else for the moment because I don't know anything
Well,
about
the film 12
any
Monkeys,
of
have
it.
you seen that?
Which is it?
12 Monkeys, have you seen that film?
Exactly. I was just going to say that 12. I have seen that. Yeah, Bruce Willis, who was a Die Hard and Die Hard as
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
right?
And it's literally like that. It's like some random guy running around spreading this virus around the world, and it's like, okay, well, they don't need one guy doing that. Although, from what they say, this super spreader guy that was from the UK. I mean, I don't know what he was doing. This scout leader doing, going to Wuhan and then going to. I think he went to Spain, then he went to France, then he went to Monaco or something, and then he went back to England. I'm like, why would
Huh.
you do that? Why would you go there? What are you? It was just like the 12 Monkeys. I'm thinking, why would you?
Right. It's
Why?
it's all too sort of scripted for me, but it's like as well. It reminds me of a sort of Mission Impossible sort of movie, and I think like with 9/11, right? Now you said you're open to talking about 9/11. You've definitely heard me talking about the media and victim symbolic hoax that it was. Absolutely certain of that. And it's like when what I was mentioning earlier on when we see the later hoaxes like the Sandy hooks, the Boston bombings, some of the nightclub shootings, and the ridiculous nature. Right now, it's not just enough to stop there. But now we got to go back and look at the earlier presentations given to us and see them for what they are. And we all know about the movies, etc., Musang videos, everything that sort of predicted or preempted 9/11. We've all seen those. So maybe lots of movies and stuff could be analyzed to point us to maybe what we're in for. It does seem that this sort of super virus been spread intentionally on a worldwide scale is not new to consider anyway. When you mention movies like 12 Monkeys and Mission Impossible. I'm sure that was some sort of a
Yeah.
script in Mission Impossible as well. A virus been spread earthwide.
And like you say, The Walking Dead, all these
Yeah,
zombie
yeah,
films,
yeah.
I mean, you don't need to be a zombie as, like they say, reanimated. I mean, you could be a walking zombie without food. Essentially, you could be that
Yeah,
hungry, you'll eat anything. And essentially, maybe that's sort of like a metaphor for that sort of thing. That, yeah, okay,
yeah,
civilization has collapsed. Okay, you can't feed yourself because you're not farmers anymore. You've lost the ability to
yeah,
farm. You've lost the ability to actually have cattle and be able to be self-sufficient. You've lost all that because they've made you lose it. You got used to just going to your supermarket and getting food, and then you didn't need to understand how to actually go and provide for yourself if the worst happened. Now, if the worst happened, how many people would survive? Not
yeah.
many, and they'd all be walking around damn hungry. And yeah, who's to say that it wouldn't come down to cannibalism? I actually read a report that I think it's is it 2 weeks without food, and then or 10 days without food, and then most people would start to turn to
Right.
cannibalism. you know,
Well, I went for 18 days without food. And I think it's all about the mindset as well. But look, if you do resort to cannibalism, start at the bottom and work your way up. But well, listen. Actually, that's another point. All these zombie movies. What do zombies like to eat? Brains. In one way, this is telling us right about our own stomach, our own gut, our own intestine, and our own makeup. And for me, that's our brain inside out. We're sort of, there's a different reality to our being. We know what we're not, right? So this is according to the heliocentrists and the Big Bang evolutionary model. So what are we? What are we? We're immaterial, material based. So if there's a sort of a blueprint for life, well, we can see the mirroring going on within us, right? We're mirrored down a central line. Well, is there a different type of mirroring going on? I say there is. Einstein was always looking for the grand unifying theory, right? The gut. And when you think about where you feel things first, right? It's always in the gut. And I say this is for a specific reason. If you don't know anything about Einstein and his missing brain, I think another clue for us, cut up into 240 pieces. So, yeah, I think all of these stories are playing into the same thing. And I've often said it as if you're just a flat earther, right? And I don't mean just a flat earther, of course, it's a big thing to sort of realize, but it's by no means the end. It's just the beginning in a real way. So what if we know, that what our home isn't? But how far can we sort of delve into finding out what our home actually is, and then by extension what we actually are, thinking about what our home actually is. So I think all of these things come into play. And as I said, I'm probably not a good. I'd be a great guy to talk to, but not on these sort of things where I don't take the literal anymore. But let me just say, if this is all playing out on a worldwide level, well, I say bring it on. I say bring it on. I've been waiting for all of this to collapse for the longest of times. And I've been counting down the years on my own channel. I've said all of this sort of stuff, counting down the years. Now I see 2020. It seems like it's always been penciled in with the perfect vision, sort of one eye symbolism. Don't ask me to expand on what I think our eyes are, Auntie. Our eyes are pulled out of the center of our brain because we're actually literally in a divided state. But that's a different matter. It's a different matter. That comes after sort of we understand that we've been lied to about everything, and then we turn the sort of microscope back on ourselves and who we really are. Actually, that's what I think all the tranny stuff is about as well. This sort of blurring of the line between male and female, because ultimately, well, both are torn from one. Right. So, yeah, let me just say that, yeah, I hope I bring it on, bring it on. Everything has to collapse. And I have faith in a higher power, a creator, right? And I think ultimately all will be well,
Well, are
all will
you
work out.
have you in some way prepared there, Pete? Then if
No,
you
not at all, not in the slightest. Not in this. If some shit happened in the morning, how can I deal with it? Like we'd all be in the same boat. And I think you'd be more inclined to sort of cooperate with neighbors. The neighbors around here, um, you know, I'm not we're not particularly friendly, but I know that if there was any sort of emergency, everyone would come together before they before they
yeah,
end one
yeah,
another
yeah. You
apart.
say that now. You say that now.
I know, I
When
know,
you're
but
fighting over the last piece of bread that's lying on the road.
right.
Yeah, but
Well, yeah, I think you're right. And if, as we imagine it, in first world countries like Ireland is said to be here, well, yeah, people have no, and even if you could grow food, you're still talking about an extended period. What would you do for the immediate period? Well, there would be consternation as we'd imagine it. Would it all boil down to cannibalism? I don't think so. I don't think it could ever be that severe. But if it was, well, look, that would involve us being as individuals in a completely different mindset. So sort of trying to think about where how I would react in that situation is not good. But as you say, as you're trying to put across, maybe it is more immediate than what we think. So just in case there is a chance, well, it's good to think about what you would do. But it's like, again, for me, it's like the asteroids. Was scared about all of this stuff when I took science real seriously. And, the very real possibility that some stray asteroid or meteor crashes into Earth and destroys all life. I think we all go through these phases in life where we're terrified of death. You know what I mean? Just the nothingness of it all and how it's going to come about. And with the scare tactics everywhere and all the different stories everywhere, I think you have to sort of go through it, deal with it, and then move on. Let me just say as well, yeah, ultimately, look, this is an individual's experience here, and it won't be said and led by anybody. And look, whatever comes about, you just have to deal with it in the best way you can. That's what I say.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, you've got to you've got to take things as they come. I mean, we've had a kind of a blessed um, life. If you consider people that live in like Asia and the Middle East and stuff like that, and you consider the lifestyle they've had for the past 100 years, and yet it was only, say, what, World War Two was the last real conflict that Britain had that affected the public. We don't have people coming and turning up at our doors with guns or having to do without food. I mean, we've had it easy here in the UK.
Yeah.
We
Well, you've been
really
the
have.
instigator of most wars on Earth in history.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. We instigate stuff, of course we do, because it's the people that are controlling that do that, and well, not we, but the military obey, don't they? They just go ahead and they do it. But
UK,
Place,
right? The
but
UK, United Kingdom, and we look at the Union Jack itself is very telling. But this is what I'm saying. Look, for the individual to sort of get a grasp on where they are, right? Then they have to sort of relook at history and everything presented to them, to us, and re-examine it. What is there a greater superstructure here? Is there greater power in play on Earth? I think all these things have to be taken into consideration. And look, never before was it easier to sort of get your hands on information. And this is probably part of the problem as well, is too much damn information that you don't know which way to look. It's like Burden's ass, it's called. The ass is placed in the center, and equidistant from him are placed bales of hay, and he starves to death for want of making a choice. I think that's that. Like all of this came on board as well, pretty much after 9/11. All this is technological advances and just the computer age really kicked into its own, and especially in terms of mass communication like this of ideas and information. So I look at it as a different. There's a story of all of us being told here. It's our story. You know, Martin Liedtke, he only takes history back to a few hundred years, like myself, like so many other people. So if that is a sort of a basis for your thinking, well, what are these superstructures involved, and who are the Illuminati? That's an interesting question. Your man didn't speak much about that, but are the Illuminati the good guys, the bad guys, the Satanists? Who's going on? The devil worship. What's going on with all of these powers? We can be damn certain that these people know the Earth is flat. The military knew the Earth was flat when they gave us the maps during the Second World War and all of these different reports, etc. So you can be sure that the nature of the Earth is known from the outset. Now, as the individual, you got to work out who's in cahoots here. And let me say as well, it's all theatre. George Bush playing the role of Charles Manson, that's mad, right? But it's all mad to begin with. Will Smith playing the role of Barack Obama, that's even madder. But it's all mad to begin with. The Earth being flat, that's all mad, going against everything. So again, how much as individuals are willing to cast aside, and then how much are we willing to sort of reabsorb again with new information? Because there's lots of it there. The way is always paved for us, right? So it's a very difficult pathway. That's all I'd say.
so what religion are you then, Pete?
Man, that's not any religion, man. We're all the same kind here. There's all the different religions point to the same story. That's why you have the sort of invention of Jesus over many different cultures throughout the past. But I don't even trust that. I hold Ranty. I'm telling you, this Earth in its current form is 422 years old this year, which the new year begins, 2020 begins in April 1st, which is the real traditional New Year. It makes sense when springtime is here. The reason they have it in the middle of the winter is because of Jesus, the Son, right, born on the 25th. So the sun on the 21st, it dies for 3 days and comes back then on its inward spiraling journey. If all of the skylights, right, are like Mark Sargent told us, like in a planetarium type where you have a central emanating source, well, if that source is moving upwards and downwards, then we'll have the movement in and out of the planets. Earth sort of breathes in a certain sense. So it's not any religion. For me, it's all about connecting the external to the internal. So realizing that we are not material only, which is what the heliocentrists give us, the heliocentrists. L, I say anyway, you see the word EL, like the blue marble, right? That's all about the material. So once Aristarchus of Samos, again, this is all storytelling. So the narrative is sort of interwoven and transmitted to us. So when the time is right, we can sort of see through the literal and put the pieces together. So Aristarchus of Samos is credited as being the instigator, the originator of the heliocentric model, which leads us all the way to the Big Bang in a material-only universe. So once we understand that that is not the case, then we can see, I guess, God within us, or Jesus within us, and see that divide. We have that material-immaterial divide, right? Our thought is immaterial, and it determines all of our words and our deeds, right? So yeah, there's a immaterial aspect to us, and it's about exploring that, and it's about seeing what the symbolic story of Jesus is telling us, both about the external and stars, right? And the internal, well, Jesus is within soul. We all have a soul, you soul. So what is the sun? So these are questions. So it's not about a religion or a belief in anything. When I talk about Aristarchus, more particularly on my own channel, it's not about, I realized long ago, there was no honest spirit of cooperation within this arena. all of the top people, and I won't change my view on anything here, Randy. And as I say, you haven't censored me as I come along here, but my view hasn't changed. That there are people on all sides, on both sides, put in place from the very outset as the whole thing is controlled. And I do hold that you're playing your part as well. But I like, because I'm on your forum here, I have to say to myself, and I've said it to you as well, sort of a certain level of respect, because I am given the sort of uncensored aspect here. So I am choosing to come in. But yeah, I have no problem saying that, because I know that it's a situation. The whole thing has been sort of unrolled for us, and ultimately, possibly for the very best, right? The awakening of mankind to the true nature of us, right?
So did you say that you think I've been put in place?
I think so. I mean,
Oh, okay. I'll tell you what.
if you're not, if you're not, well, that's okay. Listen, anyone can say anything about anybody.
That's
It doesn't
fine.
make it so, and we know as individuals ourselves. But it's such an arena. It's such an arena that both sides have been put in place from the outset. That's for certain. That's
Randy,
for
Randy, you
certain.
should change your name to Planty Flat Earth because you've been planted there, right? Pete,
But
how do you know someone's planted? What are the metrics that you use to decide someone's a plant or a shill or an agent or an
Oh, hang on,
actor?
wait a minute. You've just reminded me of something. Nathan Oakley, his 1980 channel. So Nathan
yeah,
Oakley's 1980 channel, that's one thing. But his second channel, Nathan Oakley, his original name on that, can you guess what it is?
Oak tree?
No, nice plant.
Oh man, he changed it. He changed it because Pete told him to stop it.
well, I said to Nathan years ago that he was always penciled to be famous. So he got on, Mark Sargent, right, got on to Good Morning Britain, is seen by millions of people. And Nathan was mentioned specifically, as was the Black Swan. So, I mean, mind of God, you seem to be skeptical in some areas, but in other areas, then you're just a gambine, it seems like. You have no
Well,
skeptical mind at all.
no, I'm very skeptical about everything, and it's not wrong to call people out because they're playing a role. But my worry is that you're using very, very narrow metrics, and then let's say everybody is an actor except you. What's left? Like,
I never said that. I never said that. I said all of the top people put in place, right? So,
is Randy a
if I was,
top person?
pardon?
Is Ranty a top person? Like he's just
Well,
I've scraped.
killing it.
I've
I would
scraped
say
my.
yes.
I've
I would
scraped.
say yes, Ranty.
I've spent 3 years scraping my way up through every crevice I can find to try and get a half decent subscriber base. If I was put in place, Pete,
Right.
I have a feeling that I would have gone a bit quicker.
That's okay. And let me just make a comment to John Watson, who's probably in the chat, who's given shit to me. I did say to you before about the drone, Ranty, and you did answer me right. You said that the drone was in the garage. You were waiting for the springtime to bring it out.
That's correct. Yes.
Right, that's all. That's all. So John Watson thinks I'm, because I have a wrench or something, or because I'm on the channel, that I somehow sort of change my tune and everything. I absolutely don't. I said to Nathan years ago that he was penciled in to be famous. So there we have, the Black Swan is everywhere now, and I said the Black Swan is a sort of a signal, right? It's a military term, first of all. Events or non-events, symbolic affairs like 9/11 were described as a Black Swan affair, totally unpredictable and sort of world-changing. Princess Diana faked hoax death in Paris, also the Black Swan affair, and both those events, when you look deeper, involve very closely the star Sirius. And that's a different avenue again. That's a sort of deeper layer, because we were always meant to see through the literal. And just like when we come away from spinning ball Earth, if we just throw it all to the side, right? We just toss it all out. I think that's more fool us then, because we're saying that there's only one dimension to things, and the foolers, deceivers have just been tricking us for years, and that's the end of that. No, no, it's all metaphor, right? The lie is built on the truth, and I think ultimately, well, the truth prevails, right? And the truth pervades all. So it's up for us, the individuals, to put these pieces together. If you're not an actor, as I suspect Ranty put in place, that's fair enough. We're all capable of being wrong. Mind of God, to answer your question, well, I think we learn more by what people won't talk about over what they will after a certain amount of time. And many people have been
Yeah,
in
that's true.
this arena for years on end, and happy enough to talk about the same stuff over and over again. Where's all the Bible literalists talking about the legal name fraud? The very biggest danger to our mortal soul, because we haven't come to recognize and understand who we are. You
Just
don't
like
get that.
something to think about is that now that we kind of feel more like we're in a scripted reality through Flat Earth and other things, we all sort of feel like an actor. We're worried more about people who say they're not actors. Like we're on a stage, right? We're all performing our role.
No.
That's where. Well, just let me finish my point. You can address it. That aggressive stance, which I kind of get your point, especially with people like the sergeants and all these people that we wonder where their heart is when they're sharing information. But do you agree with that statement? Now we all fundamentally are actors. I worry more about people who don't acknowledge that we are actors in some.
Well, what do you mean? What sense do you mean it then? What sense do you mean it then? Actor,
basically,
an actor is someone who's knowingly playing a part, right?
Fair enough. I know what you're getting at, but I'm saying by definition, basically, what's going on just by observing the world, we all are moving around. We have a brain that has limitations based on what we know. Now, flat Earth has increased our knowledge quite a bit, which is great, but right. That limits what we can say, literally, the words that can come out of our mouth. And then if we're young, we obviously have limitations because we don't know our surroundings yet. So we're all playing a script that has been predefined by our brain and what it can hold, right? And then, are some people limited in the things that they can talk about? Right. How the creator does that, that's a mystery.
Right, but predefined by our brain or by the creator, him or herself, even if that is up to including us. We're not part of the creator and having an experience here in division. That's exactly what I say is happening here. Literally, we are divided, male from female, self from self. So maybe the ultimate purpose of life is reunification. I've often talked about 9/11 and the Titanic, both being sort of go hand in hand. One was the beginning of it. And it's very funny, like all these things coming out now. But I've been thinking this for the longest time. The Titanic itself is a hoax, right? Just another hoax, but a symbolic affair where we had one becoming two. So then following that, we have pretty much 100 years of war, right? And then we have 2012 and all of that hype. 11 years before 2012, we have 9/11, the most defining moment of our time. So if this all, and sorry, just to tie it up, this is the end to it then, the inversion. So we have two becoming one with the Twin Towers, right? So that is all brought to fruition. If you look at one trade center, one world trade now, you have upside down triangles in the sort of the unified whole, right? So indicating, I say, reunification. So we went from unity to division to reunification, and maybe that's the ultimate purpose. And maybe the creator, the higher power, has written it into the script for our brain and our body or our mind or soul or heart to sort of piece these things together, to learn or lesson. Because at the moment, if we're being punished for something, I can't see how we're going to figure it out, right? But maybe, there's a greater plan and pay. But I will say, as opposed to actor, I would say I'm a one player here. I'm a one player. I don't know what the true nature of this is. And all of my inquiries, I can speak for myself, have been honest inquiry. I want to work this shit out for myself, for more importantly, my son, more importantly, my beautiful Stephen, who I haven't seen in 5 years. So, that's my motivation here. I'm not afraid to talk about anything. And I encourage everybody to think about everything because everything connects. 9/11 was intimately associated with flat Earth. It featured the first plane or no plane argument.
I agree with that. Yes.
Yeah, correct. The Solomon buildings brought many people into 9/11 conspiracy. Solomon is Sol and Moon, Sun and Moon. I say there's all deeper connections here. And when we get to flat and stationary Earth, as I've been saying as well, one of the first things we should all consider is a singular source to all of the skylights. Done away with the emptiness of space. And we see this is how we perceive everything. Everything moves around in unison on a daily, nightly basis as it appears to us. So all of these things are interconnected. And when I talk about actors, and I've been fucking doing this for years, and where's time gone? But I've had it out with all the ballers. You're going to tell me Rumpus is genuine, or any of the returning baller antagonists are genuine. Well, I'm going to rule you out immediately. But what about the flat Earth side then? Is it beyond our ability to imagine that the controllers, whoever they are, would not have the people in place to control the argument? Not at all. Now, if it's part of all the greater script unfolding, well, then it's even more understandable still. And I say it is. Mark Sargent, he was a prepper. Mark Sargent Prepper, that's a reference to Mark Sargent Pepper Lonely Heart Club Band, the most famous band album in history. And that's actually a walk through Alice in Wonderland, right? The book by Lewis Carroll, where we meet the dodo in chapter 3. Deep inside the rabbit hole, David Weiss is a reference to Alice in Wonderland. So it's a very significant book.
Just going to give a shout out to Godzilla37 for the super chat. Thanks to Pete. I know now what the 70s was like. Now, on second thoughts, I'll stick to using soap.
Not 70s. I was born in 1972. So I'm 47, coming up on 48 very shortly. I'm actually on the cusp of Pisces and Aquarius, is it? whatever. You know the way you have this sort of these changing dates. And my birthday is February 19th, but it's on the cusp, and here we are on the cusp of actually changing into this age of Aquarius, right? So from Pisces, I think that's funny. Lots of different funny things happen in my life.
Renty, yeah, both of you guys. Why do you think this year's unique? Just is there any major thing that you guys stands out that there's something unique about what's might happen? Both of you.
Sorry, say again.
Like you guys talked earlier before I came on about something maybe brewing in the world on the world stage.
Well, we're talking about if there was a reset to happen. If how would you elicit a reset? Without with obviously causing massive losses, but if you had the antidote, let's say, well, like we were talking about with Pete, if you had some kind of biological agent weapon that could decimate the populations, have them all fighting each other, but you were able to go off somewhere safe and sit it out and have the antidote, you could come back after 10 years to the top wherever you had been hiding, and whatever was left of the population, you'd be able to rule them.
God, that's horrific, Ranty, to think in those terms. You're thinking in 10 years. I said this year, I think the mind of God, it's always been penciled in. Everything is scripted. Script you are, right? When the Bible editors talk about the Bible predicting everything, it doesn't really. It's very vague at best. But if we then consider that everything is devised, right? There's nothing to say that the same hands that didn't write the Bible aren't still in operation today, whenever the Bible might have been written. So it all becomes a self-fulfilling sort of thing.
Pete,
but I see 2020. Right, but let me just say, I see 2020 now. As I said, I've been sort of counting the years, but 2020 makes a lot of sense in so many different ways. More particularly because of the one eye symbolism to 2020, perfect vision, and just the awakening that's going on. And I meant to say earlier on, the reason I brought up George Bush was because I remember from somewhere, it was just talking to a big bunch of conglomerates or just big headmen or something like that. But there was a little subtle reminder of why they were all doing this. So, like, think about it, all of the governments on Earth know the truth about 9/11, all these media hoaxes know the truth about Earth, and they're all keeping quiet, all of the television stations in sort of tandem. How does this silence, are they not looking at YouTube? Where's all the journalists not looking into flat Earth, and why are they keeping quiet about it? Well, I think that at the upper levels, they're led into, I guess, the greater plan here, the greater scheming. And if that's a reset, well, I look at it more as a sort of return to truth, right? So the whole true nature of our reality comes to bear. And here's the thing, right? Can we handle the true nature of reality? In one sense, that's a horrific path to take as well. The Earth is in a destroyed state. Who destroyed it? Who is doing this to us? But I like to think, in deeper terms. I'd like to think in this greater lesson that life is, this experience in division, in tough times. Because, I've just coming to flat Earth.
Give us a chance to speak, mate.
Yeah, I gained eternity, Ranty, since coming to flat Earth. All I had before.
Check this out, dude. You might like this though. Our friend Mark Sargent said flat Earth is a transition, announcing the transition of our civilization. Yeah. And so he's made these kind of cryptic statements in his audiobook. And it's crazy, dude. About this year, about 2020.
Another shout out to Godzilla 37. Just kidding, Pete. You're good people. Thanks very much for the super chat. I haven't seen that. Pete, did he actually put something out for this year then? Did you say, Mind of God?
Yeah, he wrote an audiobook, and then I got my hands on it. I don't know if it was actually paid, like he's selling it or he's just giving it away for free, but it's maybe 9 or 10 chapters, and then one of them is it's funny. The title of it is like the end of the world, but he's like not the way people think. But then he ends up making, I would say, very prophetic statements.
Mark Sargent is someone put in place from the start. That much is very obvious. Patricia Steer, it's the same thing. It's obvious. Come on. We're always meant to see through it as well because it's a greater story. Mark gave us the clues, right? So follow the clues. We're all wondrous beings here, and our story has been told, and I guess it's up to the individual to read their own story. And ultimately, I mentioned Sirius earlier on, S-I-R-I and U-S, right? So S and S. The S, we bring the S and the S together, you get the 8. Right, so we're in this divided state, And it's all about seeing that. Again, we've done away with evolution. So what is our true nature? Well, I say male from female, self from self. And you know what? When in my own brain, I sort of reconnect everything. I see wings. I definitely see wings. I do. You think about how a bird's wing works. So, are we the fallen angels? Ranty, are you a fallen angel? Have you considered that, mind of God?
What does a fallen angel mean?
A fallen angel, well, we're sort of a divided state, fallen from grace, fallen from our true form. You know, life is an anagram of if L, right? I mentioned earlier, or I fell, IFEL, I fell tower.
I have no idea what that means. Do you want to answer that then, the mind of God?
Yeah, the Bible actually supports that. We don't know who is, or obviously the way that works, but that is what the Bible narrates is the ultimate plan for God's people, is to be returned to that state that we either once were or were elevated to a new state. So yeah, that is quote biblical.
Yeah, Israel is you. Israel, it's you yourself. It's us, right? It does. Now, when we consider historical revisionism, the Wailing Wall being built in the last few hundred years, the pyramids in Egypt, same thing, and a different story is there to be read. The thing about the Bible and Bible literalism and how it distinguishes from where we left, right? They've given us 14.7 billion years of evolution, and they've filled in all of the blanks and connected all of the dots all the way up to the present point. So when we control that out as flat earthers, well, what's there for us then? Well, at least the Bible has, 5,000 years. They have it down to the day, I think Thursday evening, and very good reasons for saying these things as well, and April as well, it was created in. But yeah, 5,000 years were given. Now, what if the truth is somewhere in the mix of the two? And I think it is. Like when I said the Earth is 422 years old this year, coming April 1st, well, that's written according to the story of the dodo, the non-existent dodo bird. When we came to flat Earth, the Gleason's map, and people scoff at me, it doesn't matter, the Gleason's map was given to us. All the main players had the Gleason's map behind them, but Australia was always on the top. So when you turn it around, well, then a certain bird jumps out. So this is representative of the divided state of the Earth, the changing face of the Earth post-destruction, and also the divided state of us as well. This is why the word dodo, or the sound do, is right there from the very beginning. It's pushed into our consciousness at so many different levels, and I say all for, well, a great, maybe divine reason. Again, it comes back to who we are, right? And let me just say what I mentioned about George W. Bush and remembering him talking to a group of head honchos. Yeah, he was reminding them of why they were doing all of this. So they're put in place, they're made aware of the greater story, and they're playing their part in all of this. I've talked about the hidden hand, the HH before, and their role throughout history. Well, I hold that people like Newton didn't exist, Copernicus, Michelangelo, Lewis Carroll didn't exist. The fake religions didn't begin in our age. So the whole thing scripted, and it's a completely different way of looking at things. When I do look at it like that, well, then you get to read the story, and that story connects Mark Sargent to the Beatles, to Lewis Carroll, to Shakespeare, to the Bible. Everything connects. Absolutely everything connects. And I will just say, don't forget about ourselves, right? So it's all about ourselves. It's not just about the external. It's not just about the internal. It's about both the external and the internal. How one reflects.
We're in a divided state. No, I'm just kidding, Pete. Man, oh my gosh, dude. But just don't be offended. Don't be offended by the literalist, man. You get triggered. I don't get triggered as much, if I hear stuff as quickly as you do. I don't understand why when a literalist comes by, you get all weird, man. Just you need to relax.
Hey guys, listen. What do you think of this image that's on screen? Do you know what it is?
Yeah, dude, you guys owe me a little bit of an apology, man, because I said that those observations happen regularly, and I got berated, and I was like very sad, that night, man. It happens every day.
I did retract it on the actual comment that I put out this morning on the community post. I did actually say that I didn't think we'd see another one of these anytime soon, and yes, what do you know? He goes out and he gets it the first day. So, Pete, Black Swan Mark II. What do you think to this one?
Yeah, excellent. And well, listen, like they're everywhere, right? And you have many of your own. I find it very curious. Let me say this: find it very curious. Travis, the Plain Truth, is the author of the Black Swan. He was the one who took the original images. Now, I know back in 2016, Spurs came on the scene with a video from of the Anacapa Islands, which are adjacent islands, these oil rigs, and it was with the ballers in 2000, maybe October, November 2016, and we proved definitely the ball was dead. I never saw Rumpus was their negator. All the main fellas, Paper Explanator, they were all there and they were all stumped. So Spurs Chemo, another Bible literalist, must have got this footage from the Plain Truth, so he knew back then, and then that was presented as a major point of debate on the old Fed channel, Flat Earth Debate, Flat Earth Discussion, and the nail was put in the coffin because you could see the island, which was something like 25 miles away, if I remember, and it was only 150 feet above the ocean, according to the maps or whatever. So yeah, it was a nail in the coffin back then. So that it's been resurrected again. Yeah. Again, it's all scripted for me.
Well,
and,
to be honest, things get lost, things get forgotten. I mean, quite often we've been on the Flat Earth debates in the past, and you'll be talking about something for weeks, and then you don't discuss it for 6 months, and then the next time you start talking about it again, it's like it's fresh news. It's like you're reinvigorated with something, and
Listen,
it is a great image.
Yeah, I know that, but look, way back then and all the way through as well, I've been talking about this. Every time I came on to a hangout with Rumpus and George and all of the rest of them, they know it. On a continuous basis, I've always been saying that the horizon that you're looking at when you're analyzing any image is not the geometric horizon. It's only an apparent horizon. How we identify the real horizon, or at least an aspect of the real horizon, is via the mirroring layer. And what I said back then, it's the mirror layer, more particularly, is a globe killer. Because now, as these images show, we can testify that we're looking all the way along the water. So as we take compression and perspective into consideration through the camera lens, then we can see that any mirroring that's happening will be down to the water. And this is a very key point. But that was all way back when, and now that it's been made a big deal again, it's fair enough. But as I say, it lends more credence to everything being scripted and loads of actors put in place and delivering things when the time is right. When I talk about actors as well, let me say, just to say, because I've said it so many times.
Said it so many times. Can it wait? I just want to do a shout out to the super chat.
All right. Sorry, go on. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So a massive super shout out. Let me start again. Right, a massive shout out to the Mind of God for the super chat, and I think this needs a sing song to go along with this, doesn't it? Planty Effie living in a tree. Oh, it wasn't even that. Plenty.
I'm not balling like Sam Hine, but there it is, man. Appreciate your efforts, man.
Oh, Sam Hine doesn't come back to my channel anymore. He didn't.
Oh, okay.
He hasn't passed these shows for the past 6 months. So what can I say?
Yeah.
But plenty.
I do say, dude,
go on.
You're the most underrated FE out there, man. Like of the hours put in, man. So we could all debate who's doing what for what reason, but the reality is somebody has to get in their car and go and film that. That's undeniable. So
thank you.
What it's worth.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this year. I'm looking forward to a whole bunch of. I've got Dr. John D. He's sending me up 4 lasers. He's posting them to me, and these lasers can go for about 10 miles. So I've already got things in the work to make a platform that they all will shine across a section of where I live, across the ocean at staggered heights, so we can see how the lasers behave and interact with each other as they go across, like I think it's about a 6.5 mile stretch. So I'm pretty confident anyway we're going to get shore to shore with these laser lights. But it'll just be interesting to see if we get this effect that the Globers claim, which is that we're going to see different effects on different layers as we go higher up. So so I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to get somebody on the side. Somebody's going to do it from the side. I'll be doing it from the front. I think I'm going to get Tony, Sleeping Warrior, to do it from the side from Southport. And so we're going to have it all covered, all different ways. And if people want to participate in that, I would love to do it, because it's hopefully going to go down in the next 2 weeks. So
ballers are getting nervous, man. If you start hitting them with all these different angles where they can't weasel their way out of infinite over 6, and man, they're in trouble, dude. That's bad news.
Yeah, well, that's what it's all about. I mean, they tell us that these gradients are there, and these gradients can affect things. And well, let's put it to the test. If we've got 4 lasers doing the same job at just differing heights, then we should see different results, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that'll pan out. You know, we don't know until you test it, do you? So.
Ranty, try and shoot one of those lasers to run around the surface of the Earth and then lean up and move into the camera.
Yeah, have it in my arse. Have the laser light shining on my arse.
Make it worm along the Earth and then lean up to the camera lens. That would be kind of cool, according to Rumpus. It's crazy, man. It's crazy, dude.
Well, you saw with Ruhit yesterday. It's ridiculous to deal with these characters anymore, really.
Yeah.
And ultimately, flat earthers here, we have to ask the question: who is the real battle against? We know that all the governments and all the militaries, etc. So, no, flat Earth is an open secret. So, in one sense, you could look at all as a sort of a containment unit. Keep everyone sort of herded and corralled. And meanwhile, the controllers getting on with the plans that they're getting on with. But, again, that's a different question. That's down to the individual, what they make of it. I mean, mind of God, do you think this is all organic? Do you think this is the whole flat Earth thing?
No, it's very scripted. And I, like the reason I give a lot of people, I get impatient, and that's the part where I have to relax sometimes with the whole community, because if we had the resources of the government for even just a half an hour, this whole debate would be over, and that's money that we have all paid for. So we're limited, to do these tests that are perfect. So it is organic in that sense, because we're limited on resources, and then YouTube is kind of slightly banning or shadow banning or explicitly limiting our interaction. So that's forcing it and scripting it, but it's a very powerful truth. It's not like any other conspiracy, because if it got out there worldwide, I don't know what would happen, like in terms of like instability in the world. Like imagine, so a lot of people wouldn't care still, but enough would that they'll be like, well, damn, like, why are you telling us that the Earth's spinning when it's not, and like there would be like a sequence of questions after that who knows what it would lead to.
Well, I want to see why do these Globers not go out and do what I'm doing? So if I'm going to go out and do these laser tests to see how the light behaves, a laser hole actually behaves going across a body of water, right? Why is this? Is it just assumed that this is what happens because we're being told that this happens? Surely this should be the Globers' position to go out and do this. But the lazy fucking bastards that don't care, they just sit and say they've got a book that says this happens, and then they wait for us to go out, flat earthers, to go out to try and prove their fucking claims or disprove it, right? And then they try and use that fucking those results against us in some way. Yeah. Rather than just going out and performing the test themselves. And this is, and yet they go and they've got their channels up there with the Teespring fucking programs and mugs and TV T-shirts and all kinds of fucking shit, and they don't they don't leave their house to do anything. They don't leave the house. It's the flat earthers that are going out and putting the effort in, putting the time in. People like the Plain Truth going out, spending an absolute fortune, going to spend 3 weeks in this place to do observations. And he hasn't even got his channel monetized. He doesn't even have he can't even get a super chat. So, and yet when he puts the content out, then the Globers are going to be jumping all over it and saying, "Oh yeah, proof of globe, yeah." Well, oh come on, right?
There is a bit of irony in all the effort that you guys do. We're turning around and going to defend ourselves to people who don't even believe anything can be proved. So there is some strange thing about that. It's like, I agree with you. It's like, why are we putting all this effort? You guys obviously doing all this stuff when we're then go on debate panels with people who claim that science doesn't prove anything. It's
and massive super chat to Lumberjack as well for smashing the super chat again. He did it last night after the show finished, so when everybody left and the show was still running, Lumberjack actually did a super chat to me, so thanks very much for that. And another one today, thanks Ranty. I think that's just for the link that I provided him for the Mark Sargent interview that he did on this morning. So Lumberjack, you're ace, mate. You're always there supporting the show. Thank you very much. So yeah, guys, go ahead.
Lumberjack is a really special name. Can I just say to Mind of God here, my take on all of this is the church has always been sort of forefront in any development religiously or scientifically. So now they're still at play, right? They're still at the center. And what they have on one side are the science literalists, right? And then on the other side, we have the Bible literalists. So what the science guys do, they take everything literally. So the spinning ball is ultimately metaphor, right, for reality. The lie is built in the truth. And we can throw it all out if we want. But what could it tell us in a flat Earth sense? Well, for me, all the different movements attributed to Earth, right? 4 different movements attributed to Earth. As we know, the Earth is flat and stationary, and it can now be applied to the sky and the skylights. And if they have a singular source, earthbound source, Aristarchus, right at the north, aka Mount Meru, Yggdrasil, well, then this tells us of the 4 separate movements that is undergoing. So that's what I would say to that.
But Pete, you know what's funny, man? You know when they do that stupid sticks in the ground test, they assume that the light comes straight, right? So it's like everything above us comes down straight, but everything on the surface is curved. So the reality is literally opposite, where our ground is actually flat
Right.
and our above us is actually
right.
curved.
But that's what the square and compass is about. You have the compass
Right.
above the square, and a spherical coordinate system for the contour barrier, and the grid-like coordinate system, Cartesian coordinate system for the planar Earth, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Right.
So everything is inverted. We live in an inverted world, and that's even more literal as well. I think actually there's so many references to Anus, right? Anus is an anagram of a sun. We have black holes. We have Uranus. We have asteroids. I think we live on the arse of Earth. So we live on the underside of the divided tree. So in a sense, we're upside down. We're upside down.
Well,
but that's all part of the greater story as to what actually is, right?
I'll let Randy take that one. That's
Mad.
more his.
It's mad.
That's crazy, dude.
But that's associated with what actually is, right? If we know what isn't, is there any inroads can be made into what? I think the Creator gave us the ability to work all this stuff out. That Creator, greater part of us, whatever that entails. All we have to do is understand that there's a greater aspect to all of this.
No doubt it's all interconnected. It's impossible to piece it together. It's just we don't have enough compute power, literally, to figure it out. It's impossible.
Well, you do. The Gospel of Thomas is good. It's sort of the next step along, right? I say it's our final instruction. So once we make our way beyond the literal and see how everything applies to us, see, we are the Son of Man, right? You can't separate yourself from anything. All that's been around your whole life has been you. If you separate yourself from anything, well, then you're missing the story. But these are sort of greater considerations. But I say, throughout all of the narrative of history, the same story is interwoven. So I mentioned the Gospel of Thomas, also the Apocalypse of St. Paul, right? Have you looked at that? That's an audiobook that Flat Water has read on his channel. He's a top man, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I remember anyway. Yeah. But that's very interesting. They talk about a tree at the very end. And Paul also talks about how he leaves all of his notes regarding his revelations about heaven and hell and the journey he took to a trusted friend. We find out that a friend of Paul, trusted loyal friend of Paul, was none other than, Aristarchus. There's that name again. So we have Aristarchus being the originator of heliocentrism. Aristarchus being a trusted friend of Paul who gives us the Apocalypse of St. Paul. And then we have Aristarchus being described as the most mysterious crater on the moon, the most mysterious object in our system. So if all of these things in themselves are just noteworthy, well, if we see it as a greater story possibly interwoven into our reality, then we can read the story. So this is the whole point here. That's what I think anyway. And this is what I got to do with what is as well. I'm not interested in debating the likes of Rumpus. Rumpus will never concede on anything, but he's there not to concede.
No,
for the newcomer,
he's bald to the end. He's bald to the bitter end. Yeah.
So these are all for different matters. I definitely understand that as well. But I think like at this stage, everybody should be thinking sort of incorporating everything you've learned. You can't separate sort of knowledge of media fakery, fake history, from knowledge of the legal name fraud, right? From knowledge that the earth is flat and we are at the center, from knowledge that, we are in some sort of divided prison state in some sense, you know what I mean? Everything is sort of interconnected. And I understand I lose a lot of people, but it's just because when I decided I was a flat earther, maybe 2013, after due consideration, then it was about me, myself, finding out my reality. So I'm coming from that point of view. And of course, it's going to be a lone journey, right? So I understand that lots of the stuff I talk about strikes people as crazy. But there is a coherency to all of this, and especially when you can connect it to centuries old. I've solved puzzles that go back hundreds of years. That, as far as I know, no one
Just
else
don't
has.
give up on the Bible literally, Pete, because it is
Well,
playing out. It's playing out right in front of our eyes if you can see it.
well, it is because it's all
Very
scripted,
clear.
right? It's the same. It's the same author behind everything. I say we're still in Genesis 1, and we've just ventured into Genesis 2 for the sake of division, experience, repair, put back together again. I said we're greater than the material, so everything associated with the material we leave behind. This is what I was saying earlier on. I've lost 70 years, right? Because that's all I said. A man lives to 70, and as a heliocentrist, big banger, I absolutely accepted that into my heart. Beforehand, there was nothing. Afterwards, there was nothing. So I've lost that, but I've gained what? Eternity outside of time, knowing that I'm something else. So, when we bring back to time, time is defined or relates to the passage of the sun. So, as flat earthers, it should be one of our first things that we have to make progress on is, well, what if we know what the sun isn't, so what exactly might it be? That's all you can do, right? As an individual, just run with an idea and see where it goes down and look for the supporting sort of evidence for yourself. I know you made a laugh at me the other day about and lots of people do about the bear cloud, right? But Jesus, I was just up at the hills, and it was pelting down hailstones, and it was I was driving like pelting down rain, so it's lightning and everything. I just came over the top of the hill, and the sun peeked through. I would say almost impassively, right? Because it was just a really overcast up at the top of the mountain, or the mountain about 300 or 400 feet hill, and the sun peeked through, and what cloud did it light up on my life? It lit up the exact cloud that I showed on here, the teddy bear. And I said that the teddy bear is given to children as a sort of reminder, ultimately, a remembrance, right? That when the time is right, all of these things, we'll become aware of them all. And it's, look, we've forgotten to sort of look before us. One of the wonders about coming to flat Earth is, right, when you're looking at the universe now, it's all up close and personal. It's within your grasp. Up in a small hill like that, you can see three-quarters of the universe on an average night. That's how up close and personal it is. And yeah, when we think there's a different set of rules and there's a different game in play, I like to think that instead of having ultimate fate, that we'll find out someday. We can never know certain things here. I say we can know everything potential anyway, because why we're greater than all of this. And maybe it is the purpose of life is, well, to come to realize what we actually are, right?
Wow. Yes, Pete. That's we're definitely in a movie of some kind. There's no doubt about that. If the Earth is flat, so that's I think everyone would agree. And the funny thing is about this movie is that it's very smooth. Like we get on the ballers about this edge on their curved Earth. Where our experience is very smooth. That's what's amazing about it, is that doesn't feel digitized or in any way, and I think that's the incredible thing about the entity that made all of this, is that he's able to allow us to experience a smooth creation, no edges, literally.
Well, the power of the mind, right? The power of the mind. There's so many things that we can sort of verify for ourselves factually. We can't. I mean, this is what I talked about. And Dell didn't like me. I mentioned L. There's Dell, D-E-L. Dell talks about the Satanic Bible. I'm sure you don't like him, Mind of God, but all he's doing is there's the contrast being pointed out, right? Satan is the Lord of the material world, right? The devil. Then we have the L at the end as well, E-L. So this is the only divide here, and it's to realize our immaterial nature. But when I pointed out the futility of open, how did they put it? Exploration rights. Let's get a party together and start exploring, have the freedom to explore. That's futile. First of all, the logistics of it, then you have to worry about infiltration, and then you have to sort of decide where you're going to go, how to collate the information, if you get any information, whatever happened after that, and then where you're going to go from there. Whereas we understand already that all the information is gathered. It's just a matter of us, the people, demanding it. Every institution works for us, but you see, this is where the legal name fraud comes in. We all think we're legal names. We don't understand that we are the highest authority on the land. We don't understand that the earth is in a divided state, and that the invading waters, right? The invading waters are not natural to earth. This is why we're under maritime law. This is why you have the legal vessel at sea with the name on it that you claim to be, right? Or trustee of, anyway, lost property at sea. So it all sort of connects to the destruction of Earth and the divided state of us. The tree of life has been divided, right? Destroyed by fire as well. Destroyed by fire. That's how the story goes.
Wow.
And let me just say, listen, as I said, you can't separate it from ourselves. So we're all here because the sperm met the egg. So we have our own systems internally, our own things at play. If we understand that it's literally male torn from female, then when you urinate, etc., when you ejaculate, well, it's all a sort of ridding yourself of bodily fluids that were by nature sort of self-contained. So you understand that. So I think with what the story of Jesus is telling us as well, with the body of Christ, well, the holy bread, it's our semen, right? It's our vital fluid. And because the circuit has been broken, well, when it is reconnected, then we have the greatest miracle known to all of us, which is the human child, which is you and me, right? But yeah, is there a way to repair that circuit within the self? And well, I think there is. That's where understanding that our gut, as I mentioned earlier on, our intestine, right, is an inside-out brain. That's amazing. It's fucking amazing. I'll tell you this much. Our mouth, right, everything is inverted. Like the female and the male genitalia are in one inversion of the other. One is solid, one is the space. Our mouth is an asshole. Would you believe that? Inverted, though. It's just the opposite. So take a mouth and then just do the opposite to every aspect of it. So then you get an asshole. An anus, right? Speaking of, show your arse.
So, mind God, are you there still?
Yeah, dude.
I'm gonna shut up now.
Just,
I'm gonna shut up. It's mad.
I don't know what to say. It's therapeutic in the sense that anything I was thinking about before just gets completely erased. So, but Randy, you might like this, dude. These ballers are getting all emotional when we turn down their debate invites. So Team Septic wanted me to go on. And he's like, yeah, you're going to debate a concave earther. I'm like, wait, you're a ball earther wanting to host a flat earth versus concave. So I was like, that's kind of suspicious. And then he backs out and then says, no, it'll just be you against me and FTFE. And then I'm like, no, I'll pass. And listen to this. He's like, LOL, okay, this is probably the last time I'm going to offer you that opportunity to take it easy. like he just invited me to a president's luncheon or something. Like, these people are clowns, dude. Like, Randy, I say, dude, all the debates that you host, man, you deserve the money, man. Bring those bums over here. You need to get your super chats. Unless, and actually, if I do ever go on anybody's panel, not that I'm in demand, but I'm going to request that they put like 10% to charity or something. Because, like, these people are just... They don't know anything. Like, they don't know optics to the level that you or anybody, Pete, we do now. Like, they're just a waste of time. But I just found it funny how emotional they get now when we turn them down.
Well, it's weird. It's like, I mean, we had Ruif in yesterday, and I sort of have this view that on this channel I'm not going to be the nasty moderator. So, you know, I'll ask questions and I'll be maybe trying to direct some other people that are in the panel to hear what I'm saying. So it's like when I was talking to Ruhif yesterday, you know, I was making some points and letting him finish the points and letting him make it out like he sort of had an angle that he could win. But ultimately the win was there. It just needed to be taken, but by somebody else. And luckily I had a good partner there. So Paige was there and she was absolutely destroying him yesterday, which was really good. Yeah. But that's what I want to do on this platform. I'm not here to bully people. I'm not here to actually get mad with people either. It's like, you can come on and, you know, you can make your case, and but I don't need to get irate with these guys, because at the end of the day they haven't got the winning argument. I have the winning argument here and I can sit comfortably. But exactly. There's no point in going to their channel. Like Fight the Flat Earth wanted me to come on this Wednesday to have a quote unquote chat with him. But I know what would have happened. It would have ended up going down the route of a debate, and without, you know, the whole chat system over there, the way that he's probably got a whole bunch of people that I don't need to go over there and do anything. He can come here. I'm not going to bite his head off. He can see how I behave with them, you know. Yeah. And so if he wants to come over here and have a chat, by all means, the panel's always open. But they never are going to come this way.
There's no forfeit for them, though. You see, there's no forfeit for Rumpus. That's why you can keep coming back and keep peddling their lies. There's not, I mean, in a different sense, right? You talk about apocalypse now, almost ranty. These people have to be viewed as insiders. So maybe they're part of the Illuminati, whoever's been blamed for this reset, and they're keeping us all busy talking about nothing, right? Not really nothing. We're all settled on flat Earth when we entered here, but they'll continuously do it. And meanwhile, then, everything else is sneaking on behind the back. I mean, there has to be some forfeit at this stage anyway, because even from the listener's point of view, you're all about listeners. You have 90% people there who know the earth is flat. So they also know when they're dealing with liars, and no one likes to suffer liars gladly, So
Have you
a little bit of,
have you ever heard of the phrase, "Give them enough rope, they'll hang themselves"?
Yeah,
right.
I have, but
I actually feel that on the 2 or 3 months that I've been coming back doing these shows, that I actually feel that they've hung themselves many times, reanimated themselves, and then come back and hung themselves again. And I mean,
have you heard the phrase I made up the other evening? Flogging a dead Ruhif. I also said flogging a dead Rumpus. Rumpus has been flogged to death so many times now that it's brought him back to life.
He knows that we know now. That's why you could tell his vigor is a little bit subsided. Like, they kind of know more, about what we know. And I think credit to Ranty on these optics. Like, they can't weasel around getting around cavalier, nonchalantly saying infinite refraction and then drop the mic and think that they've convinced anybody. That's insane. That's crazy.
Well, it's a debate, right? So a debate is always two sides. You don't have to be sort of emotionally involved with the argument itself. It's a very difficult gig. Being a bowler from the start, it was, right? I hold that Rumpus and crew, they all know much more than we do. They know that the earth is flat. They all have to know about 9/11 because you know where they all stand across the conspiracy board. They're all official men. Now, if we know they're playing their part, they have to be led into greater truth in order to be able to cooperate so smoothly. And that's what they've been doing. Some of these characters have been around. I entered this arena in 2016, probably about May or June, and only because I heard this guy Paper Explanator, who was even a bigger wig than Rumpus actually, and I heard him and I said, I know that guy. He was someone up in Fakeologists, a small group where, by the way, Mark Sargent did his first radio interview with Fakeologists, a group of about 10 of us maybe, just on fakeologist.com. But there was Paper Explanator, one of the lads, sort of exposing all the media fakery events and looking into NASA. It's way back. And there I hear him again, taking sort of opposite character, and this is Paper Explanator. When I came on, that's the reason I joined the Hangouts. When I came on then and confronted him, that's the night we all heard about, this is back in 2016, great drama, we all heard about his terminal cancer. He had only 8 months to live, and that's his way of covering up me exposing him. So he had to carry that sort of guise throughout the rest of his time. That same night he said he'd only 6 months to live, and he forgot because he had to make shit up on the spot. But anyway, the point being that they all know the nature of these things. And
do you know how easy it would be to prove if the earth is a ball? It would be very easy. At least the spin, it would be so easy. Like, they wouldn't use a stupid pendulum that obviously is not showing anything. Like, it wouldn't be this hard, man. This is just this pathetic, dude.
Exactly.
It's harder for us because the resources, and it's obviously a big earth, and then optics is really our only thing right now, until we get more resources or something physical that can be built. But
life has to be about something. Life has to be about something, mind of God. I'm interested. I mean, do you think it's a bit disrespectful to call yourself, first of all, the mind of God? I mean, the mind of God is ineffable, unknowable, and to make that association. You've been a religious man as well, I would have thought.
Pete, it's a location, man. Why are you offended by that? You don't think that there is a God and he has a mind? It's a place.
No, okay, that's fair enough. It's just, as I said, it could come across as being haughty or pompous in some way.
No,
but
if God exists, he has a mind, and it's where we all exist. So it's not that I'm there or I know it.
No, okay,
if I did,
I
probably wouldn't be on these Hangouts. I would be doing something probably big, real big. But
real big. What's worthwhile in life? Let me just ask you: life has to be about something. We're told that Methuselah lived till I think it was 980 or something, and Adam as well. They all had a vastly elongated sort of span compared to what we have. So in
Yeah.
terms of like 50 years, I'm 47 now, coming up on 48. I think what I've come to know now would be more than any generation in the past, even in terms of flat Earth now, right? 90% of the population don't consider any of the stuff that we consider, or and then me within flat Earth, the stuff that I'm considering. But I know that it's written. There's nothing new under Aristarchus, right? So the truth is known. So what is life about? I mean, are we thrown into a situation that we're absolutely helpless, or have we been given the ability by the Creator to sort of piece things together and get a greater context and grasp on our reality primarily? Because after all, yeah, we're still only a very young age.
I mean, the biblical answer is not that clear. I would say I have my own ideas. I can share that, I guess. But
Yeah,
I believe that if a God exists and there's energy inside of us, that is from God. It's not God outsourced that to something else. We are a derivative of God. And then so what that energy will do in that out of the body state, I can only guess. I would say, if I were to guess, is that we are being groomed for the ability to then create on a lower level than God, and then we will have some subset of His power, and then that's what He ultimately wants, is us to be sovereign, creative, independent, and all that like He is. But there has to be a grooming before we can do that. We have to see good and evil. That's why we're here. We have to see this deception, the rumpuses, and all that fight
right.
against evil, and then we now are co-responsible enough to handle access
Well,
to
we
power that
we
God
have
has.
all the time in the world, right? So if everything is pre-scripted, and there has to be a final battle, and I say this is the great final battle of science versus religion. So everything is inverted as well. So science, in a real sense, now has become about a belief, and religion, in a specific sense, has become about knowing. Right? We all know there's a higher power. Can't put our finger on it, but as flat earthers, it's almost a sort of a logical necessity, right? That there has to be a higher power. So yeah, I think this is, for instance, yeah, we mightn't have all the time in the world, and maybe all of this battlegrounds are being prepared specifically for this time, and maybe 2020 is the year it all goes down. I couldn't bear to think in terms of 10 years now.
I think
Jesus
it
Christ,
is. I think it is. I think
you
this year
know.
is going to be interesting.
And if not, we have to do our part. Where are all the Bible literalists en masse, if they did, right, talking about the legal name fraud? We've been chatting about the legal name fraud for years, the biggest fraud against humanity. We're all kings and queens on this land. And I use that in a loose sense, the highest authority on this land, though. So, yeah, again, the invading seas, we're in an unnatural state. So we have to understand this first. And I believe you've heard people talk about the Bible being a book of law, right? So it
Yes, it
is.
is.
The Bible is true. I don't dismiss anybody's true and honest beliefs. I hold that the Bible is true, but not in the literal sense. So much of history is fabricated. The richer meaning is in the symbolic interpretation of these things and how they might apply to you and life now. Who cares what go? Look, more as people now, what's going on in the desert areas of the earth now, in terms of Middle East or in Jerusalem? No one knows. So
Mhm.
why are they going to care really or associate really with something 2,000 years ago, a history they don't know whether it's true or not? Again, I don't think that's the way it's written, and everything has to apply to us as the individual. What applies to one man applies to every man, right? And I think that has to be the way because we're such wondrous. Like we'll all look at a child and say how wondrous, miraculous that is. There's a higher power involved. Well, when do we stop being children? And last thing as well, I said this the other. I was only thinking about it, and I know it's true. It's a part of my reality. But I remember when consciousness, the best way I can describe it, kicked in, and I was in a pram. I knew it. Just kicked. I just snapped into being, and I had the thought. I had the thought obviously no verbal expression, had the thought, where am I? What's going on? As I looked up into the corner of the ceiling. I think we're born knowing everything, and we're thrown into a sort of foreign land, a foreign mix, and taught a foreign language, taught to forget. But now the time is for remembering and put back together. So I think the puzzle isn't outside of our capabilities of piecing together once the context is right. And when the context is right, well, then everything can slot into place. So on that note, I'm going to leave it and say thanks for the opportunity to chat openly, I must say, uncensored. So I do really appreciate that. And I appreciate some of the things I talk about as well are a bit sort of involved and sounding mad. But yeah, so take it easy.
Peace, Pete. Good one. Yep.
Thanks a lot.
See you later, Pete. So,
Plenty. What's up, man?
plenty. I love it. Who said that? Was it?
You got plenty of evidence of flat Earth, man. There's no doubt.
Was that Pete Shea that said plenty?
No, I just did, but I think it's I just think it's funny because he could do a lot better if he just approaches the conversations the way he did today and just don't accuse everyone right off the jump of an actor. That's just it doesn't help the conversation. If he just talks like that, people would take him much more seriously. But that's funny.
Plenty. I'm never gonna live that down now. You do realise that? That's gonna be a new nickname for me.
I mean, how many videos do you have on your channel of like flat Earth stuff, man?
Man, I mean, I don't even show a tenth of them.
Yeah, right.
Which, like, I'm showing videos now that have never been shown before ever of me like just parking up at a roadside and trying to get these images of these lampposts. The cars are whizzing by me. On this next video, here we go. On this video. Oh, I crossed over. Hang on. Yeah, park my. Hey, look at this. I'm down in the middle of the road facing these oncoming cars.
Wait, what is this about? Are these mirages?
Yeah, well, no, I was trying to get these lampposts in a line because they were pretty straight, and then I was trying to get a perspective view. So I've run across and I'm trying to just set my tripod up in the middle of the road with the oncoming cars coming.
Are you friendly with Life is Short, Travis? Do you know that individual?
Yeah, I had him do presentations on my show, I think.
Oh, okay, that's good. Because now, I feel like what he did, coupled with your version of Black Swan or the Black Swan that's out there, put us in a huge lead because he actually has like a mathematical treatise on the bottom up, and so ballers, I don't know what they're going to start citing for bottom up now that their edge is gone. So, his work to me is fantastic. Like first of all, I don't even know how he actually makes the video. Like they're that good, but the quality content is great, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, if you wanted to spend a lot more time producing a video, maybe spend a week or 2 weeks on doing something, you could do that. But I just fire things out, and talk about them on the fly, and then other people can take that information and they can use it. So it's just, that's how I kind of do it. Although I have put plenty of presentations together on Nathan's, and I would guarantee that probably not even. There's probably at least 100 presentations on there that I never mirrored myself at all, easily. Yeah. Easily. But yeah, you can. I suppose you can put a presentation together with in an hour or so. If you had an hour, you could put something together. Yeah.
No, that's good, man. I don't know. It's even with Oakley's Hangouts, it's almost like the thrill's gone now, kind of, because there's not that many ballers that come around as much. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to diss it. I'm not dissing this show, but he's right. It's right. People, the Globers won't go in there, and I don't know. I mean, it's up to them. Whenever they go in, they only get about 10 words in anyway. So yeah. Hey, I mean, each to their own. Brenda loves it. She loves going in and getting muted. So does the Rumpus.
If I have quantum mechanics questions, I know where to go. I'm glad Brenda's around, so that's the first person I'm going to call.
But you can understand this frustration though, because I mean, I've had her come on here and she's had an hour or 2 hours to get through the same stuff and talk about stuff, but it's the same shit. So he probably knows what's coming. So it's like, yeah, you only need 5 seconds. You was on ranties for an hour and you couldn't get it out. You couldn't convince somebody. You couldn't win an argument there, and it was all just bullshit. So, yeah,
it's crazy, man. Who would have thought, dude? We'd be debating the shape of the Earth in our adult life for years. That's crazy.
Well, to be honest, when I first joined Flat Earth, it was more a case of it seemed like the Globers had all the arguments back then.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, years ago. I mean, this isn't my first channel either. I mean, my old channel got deleted from YouTube, so essentially, this is my, and I was already on Flat Earth then. So, how long have I been on Flat Earth now? What, 4 years? More maybe.
Yeah.
But back then, they had, from what I remember, they always seemed to be coming in and winning the arguments. And you had Sleeping Warrior there, who had already been researching it. So I was listening in, and it was like, well, Tony knows this stuff, but he could never win an argument with them because they could bring out this and they could bring out that. And it was only when we got into the past 2 years of research that people have really put all this effort in, that now they've got nothing. And it's kind of nice to be in that situation.
Yeah, it is, dude. It's like, I mean, if they have to rest on infinite anything, that's a pretty weak position. So they seem to be comfortable with it, but I wouldn't be.
What was it? Infinite over
Yeah.
6.
And then they're like more than like they're doing some great, like that whole Al K hangout, man, was just comedy. Like they didn't know what was going on, dude. Like they were changing the narrative in a 1.5 hour, 2 hour hangout with 3 optics code experts. Like I just felt bad. I was like, don't publish this to the internet.
Who was that? Okay, did you say?
Yeah, he doesn't have that many subs, but they had a...
Oh, the Looming one. The Looming one where he says that he's no longer allowed to use Lumin?
Yes, I think he did mention it in that as well. He said a lot of statements in that just... He said density gradients are inspired by temperature change, which may be true sometimes, but obviously not all the time. That's not the only thing that would create density changes, or refractive index changes. So they just said a lot of really weird stuff, and then Rumpus changed his mind, and then Dean and Ruhif kind of tagged up and beat him, and then George came on at the end and started talking about assumptions of the atmosphere, and then people just dropped. it was just so strange, like, to hear it. It was just, I felt bad. So it's not good.
Do you know what's interesting? Looking through these old videos and stuff, it's like there was times back then when I looked at stuff and I was like, I couldn't understand. I had doubts. I did have doubts, and it was just constant research to actually try and understand what the hell am I actually seeing it. Like there's a video that I just had on. So this is an image from showing barrow furnace from a higher observation point, but I'm looking at this next video here, and I've got my tape measure out, and I'm being as scientific as I can. I'm measuring on the step how high I am above the water and stuff, and then I go down lower in a bit. But when you look back at these observations and you see, like, you are seeing some obstruction. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you're missing the sand dune that would normally be in the way of like this lighthouse, and so it's kind of like, well, what's going on here? But then you realise you're looking across this estuary, and this narrow funneling, and you get this shoaling effect. And once I didn't know that back then, but through seeing this, I wasn't just prepared to just sit back and think, okay, there's proof of Earth curvature. I'll go back now and pretend I'm a glober. Yeah, no, that wasn't the case. It was like you saw this, but then you had to find an explanation for it, and hey presto, you can, but they can't prove looming, and that's the
No, they won't. No, they won't go there. I've messaged George on Skype. He's like, oh, I gotta go. I got a meeting. They're not going to be able to draw any kind of medium that will make looming physical. They just won't. It's the awkward elephant in the room. So
it's interesting. I can actually see the swell on this. It's weird because I didn't even understand the properties of I'm Sangro and I live by the ocean all my life, but I never really appreciated the movement of the ocean, so to speak. But I can actually see the swell in this shot now. So even though there was no wind, right, and I'm thinking there's no waves, you can actually see the swell, and I mean, just understanding this now, it just makes all makes so much more sense. I mean, even the things that I'm seeing right now on a globe model, you shouldn't see any of these. This is it. The distance is involved. You shouldn't see anything that I've just filmed there and showed people. We shouldn't see on a globe. That's it. That's definitive. That's a cast iron guarantee that you shouldn't see anything from this distance at that elevation. But we're seeing all these buildings here, right there, that should be gone to earth curve, but we're missing a tiny portion on the bottom. But then you look at the wave, you can actually see the wave, the swells on the wave, and you know that they can be feet in height. And I'm so close to the water right now, and I didn't understand this back then.
Look how stable all that stuff is. How can they cite refraction on any of this if they're citing looming or whatever? Like, there's no distortion when you were zoomed in. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, here, yeah.
Like where? Yeah, I mean, it's just crystal clear, dude. Like,
yeah, and this is all supposed to be being loomed up, right? Because none of it is supposed to be visible. But they will turn around and say, well, where's the bottom 40, where's that 40-foot sand dune that's in the way, Randy? Where's that 30-foot sand dune there?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, what about all the building that we are seeing, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, we can say, well, we can find the bottom up obstruction. You just need to find the data to back you up. But they can't bring the data to back them up that shows that you've got looming.
Yeah, they have a problem. I mean, those rays coming from the bottom of those things have to now curve over the earth and, you know, make it so they have the same issues that we do now. It has to travel that distance. It's harder for them because it has to curve over earth. So, you know, that's they're in trouble, dude. Yeah, for sure. Is this your quote black swan? Or remember you said you had one that kind of near and dear to your heart, that's the globe killer? Is that this?
No, I think all of my observations in this location, for the most part, are a pretty much globe killer, because wherever I go, I can see Barrow in Furness. So, so it doesn't matter if I can see just the top of the buildings, you know. Yeah. Because I shouldn't be able to see them anyway, you know. And they're all very stable, you know. You very rarely see any kind of distortion on the images. Yeah.
That was from six. Oh, that's like, how far above the water is that? Like a few feet?
Yeah, well, what I'm doing here is I'm measuring the height of the step, so I know how high each section of step is. So in this case, they're normally about 5 inches. So whenever I do an observation in this location again, I can just count the steps, and I know that they're each 5 inches in height, and I can just work out a height above sea level and stuff. So this was all my research that I was doing, because I was always down here filming. I wanted to be really accurate with what the observation height was and stuff, because back then that was the only thing that the Globers cared about, you know, because they needed an earth curve back then, you know. They needed the curve, they needed the horizon, right? That's what they needed. So they always wanted to measure it to the horizon, so they always needed the exact measurements above sea level, blah 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 blah. Right? Yeah. And that's why I went around measuring stuff. I wouldn't have done it, you know, if they were going to say that the horizon isn't, you know, you can never judge the horizon because it's always an apparent horizon. What would be the point of fucking measuring it then? Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
that's crazy, dude. I just can't believe people could look at this and say the Earth is curved. You know, that those things are tilting back slightly. That's just crazy. But yeah.
It is crazy, but hey, it's a crazy world we live in, mate. It really is.
Yeah. Well, dude, thanks for having me on. I just came on just so Pete doesn't go crazy, because when I'm around caves a little bit, you know, because he knows I can start pulling out, you know, truths that he doesn't want to talk about. So I'll corral him. But I appreciate it, man. It was fun.
Yeah, no worries. So I'll probably do a show tomorrow. I think I've got a plan for a show tomorrow. Loads of people in. I think we've had, how many people are watching at one point? I can't even think now. I know we're getting.
I feel like you always have 150 at your normal steady state.
Yeah.
That's kind of, yeah.
Oh,
that's good.
We've got a super chat from James Richard. Do not worship the creation as opposed to the creator, for he who loves the world, the Father is not in him. Do you know that verse?
Yeah.
Ooh. And Paige is $7.99 as well. Thank you very much.
That's a good one. That's echoed throughout the entire Bible, so that's a very good one.
Oh, another one from James Richard. Life is about suffering while seeking the truth. Thank you very much for another super chat there. Thank you. I have missed a few because I've been playing these videos. I've not actually seen them pop up. So, yeah, Paige, thanks very much. In fact, everybody, really, thank you everyone for stopping by and listening to what we've had to say. Hope you might have found something of interest. Mind of God, anything you want to say for a roundup?
No, that's good, man. I think the combo is good. I think, yeah, man, it's crazy. Like, just digesting this reality that we live on a flat, stationary Earth is, it's tough, man. But I appreciate all your efforts, Ranty, and have a good night, man.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks. See you later, mate. Cheers.
Yep.
So, yeah, guys, so that's going to do me for tonight. I had only planned to do till, what time was it? 1 o'clock? Was it 1 o'clock? No, 2 o'clock. So I've done an hour more than I should have done. But there you go. I suppose that's just what happens when you get talking. Mind you, it was hard to get a word in, to be fair, with Pete. You had to wait 5 minutes before you could put your hand up and say, "Please, sir, can I have a message? Can I say something? Can I say something? Just a minute, just a minute." Very funny. Right, okay, guys. Yeah, I'll see you all tomorrow. Hopefully you'll all stop by. And yeah, hopefully we'll get a few more panelists tomorrow. It'd be nice to get a few more in and discuss something, some kind of topic on flat Earth, I would imagine. So yeah, see you all tomorrow.